What is up, guys? How are we doing? We are doing great. Welcome back to
Yeah,
another episode of
effing
Jedi In Exile.
fantastic.
Our minds have just officially been blown because we have both just finished watching the first two episodes, so bolt together the premiere of the Kenobi series. Um, Brian, I'm lost for words, so I'm going to let you start. Talk to me, mate.
Yeah, it was an emotional roller coaster, Matt. I I'm going to admit this. After about watching the first 5 minutes of episode one, I was emotional. I was thinking, oh my God, this character's been through so much. So the recap itself, before we even got into the actual episode, there was the button came up for me to skip recap. And I'm like, what the hell are they recapping? And it comes up, and I'm like, oh my God, it's the whole prequels. It's my childhood.
So
Like,
for anyone that's interested, by the way,
that's
I
all I
discovered
can
that
sum it
that
up.
that little recap is available as a standalone little movie that you can watch on Disney Plus. I've watched it about 3 times. I'm not gonna lie, unreal.
Yeah, it's absolutely mental. So I watched the recap, and then I mean, so first things first, I loved both episodes. There's things that I really liked. There are also a couple of things I didn't like, which will go on to. I think we do have to be balanced as much as we think it's awesome. But the feeling for me was just I think we went through loads of emotions during these two episodes, but it was just nostalgia.
Yep.
Like Obi-Wan is back, and it's a different type of Obi-Wan. It's more, and obviously this is done on purpose. It's the Alec Guinness more so than the train spotting Ewan McGregor. So, yeah, his voice is very different. Um, Obviously, he looks older. This is an Alec Guinness Obi-Wan, um, and it's interesting to see where the storyline is going to take us. He's living in a cave. He's not in the nice little hut he's got in A New Hope. Um, he's like shut himself off, kind of not shut himself off like Luke Skywalker in Last Jedi, but
He's
he's kind of shut
let's say
himself
he's
off
taking a
from
step back. He's taking
yeah,
a
he's taken
step
a
back
step
from
back
the
from the
Force.
Force, which again for me, when I thought about that, I thought that could be a way of explaining why the fight between him and Vader was so shit in A New Hope, because he's not had to use the Force and he's been in hiding. So for me, that was almost like hmm, that could explain that.
Yeah. So I
So
mean,
yeah, there were some great things I loved, things I didn't like. Matt, what did you think?
it was an absolute emotional roller coaster. Let's be honest. That recap was. I mean, Deborah Chow take a bow for thinking. Let's throw that in here. It was very like Marvel-esque in regards to that's what they do with a lot of their stuff to kind of show you the bits that you need to know to kind of make sense of what's going to happen in that episode, but also really not, because it was you could have left it out. It's so unnecessary. The people that are going on watching this have watched the prequel trilogy. They know what the story is here. Like, there's so much hype around this stuff, you don't need to have done it, but just doing it to kind of like tease it and really set the emotional tone for the episodes was so clever. And then to
Yeah, yeah,
immediately hit us with the
yeah.
Order 66 bomb was unreal.
Yeah, and you know what I really liked about this scene? It was really different for Star Wars. Was I kept thinking about the camera, how they were filming it, because the camera like followed them as they're running. It really reminded me of, and this is completely random, but I love The West Wing, and that's one of the first programs where characters walked and they would walk between rooms, and the camera like followed them across, so you felt like you were with them in conversation, with the actors. This felt kind of similar, where the camera like had him really quickly when they were leaving the first room and going into like the main library, where you could see like obviously the clones and other Jedi fighting. It was just yeah, insane. The only thing I kept thinking when I saw the clones come into that room and start shooting, I was like, holy crap, are we going to see Hayden Christensen? Please say we're going to see Hayden Christensen. And I think if that would have happened, I literally would have fainted. Like, I just, yeah, words fail me with that. But it was such a great, and it was just, I liked that it was just such a tiny bit. It was like a 2 minute scene, and then it jumped straight away 10 years later.
So I've got a theory, right? I've got a theory that Reaver is
Yeah,
one of those
I agree.
Padawans.
I agree.
Which is why I don't think
I feel like she was maybe on the run and then was found and turned.
knowing that the creative forces behind all of this, so Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and Deborah Chow as part of that kind of close knit team that did all of that stuff, knowing that they always have a plan. They haven't just shown an Order 66 scene for the sake of showing an Order 66 scene and getting people hyped. That is there to set the tone and set the stage for something bigger. So I 100% am convinced that she is going to be one of them, which I think will be why she's so hung up on Kenobi. There'll be some link there as to why she's so hung up on Kenobi. So that in itself, unbelievable. What a way to start the series. Absolutely incredible. But then just kind of getting to explore. I think a lot of what we saw was from all of the promotional stuff, right? But actually,
I noticed that a lot of the stuff from the promotion was literally just these
first two episodes.
We've not seen anything
No.
of what's going to happen going forward.
And there were some really, like, we're not going to sit here and tell you the story. You guys will have all seen the episode, so we don't need to tell you what happens because you know. But let's talk about some of the things that were really cool. Some of the cool little nods to fans that maybe not everybody picked up on, and some of the little. So we can't talk about this without talking about the return that definitely wasn't teased. It wasn't in any of the promotional stuff. There were a few rumors kicking about that maybe it was going to happen, but Big Jimmy back as Bail Organa, and just bringing in the whole Organa family. The fact that we get young Leia in this series, everybody just went with the whole it's Kenobi, it's on Tatooine, it's young Luke. Like, that's going to be the big thing. And I remember we did our predictions way back when, right? And we were like, oh, he's going to be going elsewhere. He's not just going to sit on Tatooine for an entire series. Literally, first, like, I'm gonna lump episode 1 and episode 2 together as the premiere. Like, the first premiere episodes, boom, we're off planet. We're gone.
I like it because I liked the Leia angle, and I disliked it as well. But I'll say why I liked it. I liked it because Obi-Wan has gone to Tatooine to look over Luke and protect him. Leia, yeah, she's in a royal family, so she's going to have some level of protection, but she's not got a Jedi protecting her. So it kind of feels like she'd need that. Because in Legends, Obi-Wan tracks down, well, it doesn't track down, Obi-Wan, Anakin's rival from the Jedi Temple, who leaves the Jedi Order and has bad blood with Anakin, manages to track down Obi-Wan, and he actually becomes the Emperor's apprentice for a little while, but is kind of undercover for Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan sends him to Alderaan and is like, I'm Luke's protector, you're Leia's protector. So I like that Obi-Wan is kind of almost protecting them both now, because of what happened in the episode. But I disliked it, and we had a little chat just before coming on air, so we're going to repeat ourselves here. But I disliked the Leia bit slightly, because I feel like if you've been kidnapped and then you've been rescued by this weird, mysterious person who's a Jedi, who are even more mysterious, and then you send a message like 15, well, not even, you send a message 10 years later saying, years ago you served my father in the Clone Wars. At 10 years old, you'd remember Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, you would say, oh, you served my father in the Clone Wars, and you remember that time that you rescued me?
Exactly. Yeah.
These pirates.
We both picked up on that.
Remember that.
We both picked up on that, and I think other people will have picked up on that as well. I don't think we're going to be the only people that have picked up on that as something that went on. And maybe I think one of the things that this series is, we said at the very beginning, is going to need to be careful of is retconning current canon. So obviously there were always the question marks around the whole when Vader and Obi-Wan fight on the Death Star. That should have been between episode 3 and then that in everyone's heads that was the thing. And now there is the grey area, and there's the argument for they never say it was that time on Mustafar, so we're good. But I definitely think with this one it feels a bit strange. Now maybe it's going to be explained, because there was all of these questions around how R2 and C3PO didn't remember people from the, like the name
Yeah,
Skywalker and all of that kind of stuff, and that was explained towards the end of episode 3, right? Because they send them for memory wipe and stuff. So
3PO, not R2.
yeah, so that kind of helps explain that. So maybe there is going to be an explanation here. Maybe, you
Yeah, I
know,
think it's the line of "When I left you, I was but the learner." Is Vader saying 10 years before that, when he's really at the peak of his powers, he's the learner. But yeah, I'm not overly concerned with that line. I think what's interesting, and something I was reading the other day, and props to whoever wrote it. There's a line in Return of the Jedi that, and when you think about it, I've never actually really thought about this line. Just before Vader's taking Luke to see the Emperor in Return of the Jedi towards the end, Luke says, "You won't turn me over to the Emperor. I feel the good in you. I feel the conflict." And Darth Vader turns away and says it's too late, and says, "Obi-Wan once fought as you do." And it's like, so Obi-Wan has said there's still good in you, and there's maybe there's conflict, but there's good in you. It's almost like, are we going to see Obi-Wan try and turn Anakin back?
well,
It's
maybe
like,
because
yeah,
we know that obviously, as much as Deborah Chow's the director for this,
yeah.
Filoni,
This is
Favreau,
Baby
the
John.
usual
Yeah,
crew, all
yeah,
involved, and we know that they're so good at picking up these tiny bits that have already been set in canon and stuff, and making them make a little bit more sense. So maybe that's what this is. Maybe
yeah,
this is their explanation for that line.
yeah. I love the little drop in of the clone trooper in episode 2 when they're on that other planet. I really like that. I really like that we had a clone trooper who obviously you're supposed to feel sorry for, a veteran. He's like, spare any credits for a veteran. And Obi-Wan immediately bumps into a stormtrooper. So it's like the then and now. But I really like the clone trooper. I think the reason, obviously, Obi-Wan, and we're living it with him, we're like, oh my God, this guy could have killed Jedi. He had the blue armor on his sleeve. And I'm like, that's the 501st. So for those who don't know, 501st were like
That was
Anakin's
Anakin's battalion, right?
like battalion, and they stormed the temple with him. So, like, could have been responsible for killing, tens of Jedi. So, but it's like with all the scenes, all the emotional scenes with Obi-Wan, we're feeling that emotion with him, and
Do you
that's
know?
not just acting. That's not just Ewan McGregor being a good actor as Obi-Wan. That's us in our head, like
I
thinking,
I tell
"Oh
you
my
what's
God,"
I tell you what's
thinking for our
crazy.
childhood.
For me, it's the whole, and we said at the very start of this episode, it was an emotional roller coaster. It really was, and you could see the absolute despair that Obi-Wan has. I really liked, and this leads me really nicely into this like the next point. So really liked that we got to see the other Jedi on Tatooine, and that it made it out from the very beginning that they were hunting Kenobi, and then all of a sudden there's this reveal that actually it's not Kenobi, they're not there for Kenobi. But I really liked the kind of inner turmoil, and you can see that he's in such a bad place, which obviously
They had,
we need to
yeah,
expect,
they
because
had,
he's come off the
yeah,
back of losing his best friend, who has well, more than his
yeah.
best friend,
They
who
had to
has
portray
turned.
this, didn't they? That they couldn't have, because you'd think a Jedi Master would want to fight against the Empire. They had to portray him as like, we've lost,
Yeah.
the whole stay hidden. And all those lines from the trailer, with the lines he spoke to the Jedi, he's like, you have to leave. I can't help you. And he tries to say that to Bale as well. He's like, I'm not the man you once thought I was. Like, no, I'm not doing it. And that's shirking a Jedi's like responsibility. Like, the Inquisitors talk about the Jedi Code. It's an itch that the Jedi have. They have to help people.
And
And
what
Obi-Wan
happened?
has turned his back completely on that.
He turned his back completely on that. However,
Yeah,
couldn't resist the urge.
yeah,
I
exactly. But
I
it's when
thought
Bale came to him. Oh yeah, I mean that was great. One of the things that I didn't like was, and this just because we're talking about Obi-Wan's emotions and his despair, towards the end of episode 2, I didn't like when that Reaver mentioned Anakin Skywalker, because the whole point of Darth Vader, nobody's supposed to know he's Anakin Skywalker.
A few people do.
Yeah, no,
So
and I think there's going to be a bit more, and this is where I came to the kind of same conclusion as you with that Reva, that she must be part of the Jedi, because Anakin was a famous Jedi. So if he's in the temple, she's going to recognize him, and she's going to, know who, Vader is
and
essentially.
they're trained by Vader, right? Like
I
they
know, but
are.
he wouldn't be. He didn't want to talk about his past, as far as
No,
he
no,
was
no,
concerned.
no.
He says in
But
Rebels, and there's loads of lines, Anakin Skywalker is dead.
But if you go with the whole theory that each person has kind of like an individual, so Vader can sense Luke, right? Because they kind of live off this unwritten theory within the Star
Connection.
Wars universe that each individual person, as much as a force sensitive person, gives, like, everybody gives off like a signal,
Yeah, yeah,
let's say, but each individual person has a unique kind of signal. If she has trained or been in the temple and met him before, so has been exposed to that, because that's how Ahsoka works out that it's Anakin when she's fighting him in
She don't know.
Rebels.
It's she sees some
It's
part of
not
his
just
face.
that she's worked it out before that,
Yeah,
and then
but
she
she
says, "I
says, "I'm
refuse to
starting."
believe it."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She says, "I'm starting to think." Blah blah blah. Yeah, I I don't know. I just, for me, I felt like Darth Vader, like,
Again,
he's
maybe it's
destroyed
explained.
Anakin Skywalker. He has
Maybe it's
destroyed Anakin Skywalker,
maybe it's
and
explained. I
yeah,
think we
I
have
feel
to
like
give it
it's
the
going to be
benefit of
explained.
the
That was,
doubt, right?
but that was just something that was tiny that I was like, I don't really like that. Um,
While we're talking about tiny things, like small little
where
tid
is this going?
well, hey, small little bits that are like just tiny little nods to Star Wars and stuff. One of the things that I massively picked up on that I can't believe I haven't noticed it before, and I know that he does it in the prequel trilogy, but as it's getting on, so when Obi-Wan, Alec Guinness Obi-Wan in A New Hope, is thinking about things, he does this thing where he like crosses his arm and kind of does this and like touches the side of his face, and it's really specific. So I know that a lot of people, so you're doing it right now, you're doing this, right, and a lot of
Yeah,
people
I
kind of,
just, yeah,
but there's
yeah.
there's
Because
a
I thought you
really
were going to say that.
specific where he kind of does like this down the side of his face, and there's a bit where like he's like this, and there's a bit when he goes to rescue Leia, he's standing around trying to work out how to get into the building, and there's a bit where he stands like this, and I was like, you could literally morph him on top of Alec Guinness right now and they would look pretty much identical. And I just thought that's so good, because either that's Ewan McGregor, or that's Deborah Chow, or that's Dave Filoni or Jon Favreau, who's kind of gone, how are we going to show him gradually moving from Ewan McGregor, young Ewan
Yeah,
McGregor Obi-Wan, into Alec Guinness? And it's really cool to just kind of see these little nods um, from one to the next. So I'm really excited to kind of see what happens, to be honest.
yeah. I thought the first two episodes were really good.
So what I'm
I
going to
think they
do
set
is,
the series up beautifully, a lot better than Book of Boba Fett was set up.
yes, agreed. I am going to go out and say that I actually think that the production value on this looks much better. The production value on Book of Boba Fett wasn't bad. This isn't me saying that
No,
that was
but
bad.
it's hard though because it's all just a sand planet,
Yes,
basically.
but
Like,
this
it's just
this we've
desert.
immediately kind of, they've gone all out. This is big budget. Like, they've gone, we'll do the
This has
Jedi
been the main one.
Temple. We'll do the Jedi
Yeah,
Temple. We'll do Tatooine. We're now gonna like they've done this second planet. I forget what it's called. I want to say like Dayu or something like that.
yeah. I was gonna say like Daffy or something.
Um, like, and then they've done these little nods. The whole clone trooper thing was really great. Great to see Tamira Morrison back for even just like a little Easter eggy role, I guess, if you want to call it that, little cameo.
We're getting that
Um,
page up.
so great, and to see them bring in Bail Organa, Leia, like, they could have dragged this out, and that could have been something towards the end of the series that they kind of teased to set something else
Yeah.
up. This is 100%. They're going in. They've got big name characters in. We know that Hayden Christensen's going to be in it. Obviously, we get that
Well,
incredible
yeah,
scene at the
yeah.
end.
Yeah.
in the back to tank. Absolutely awesome. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to rate it out of 10, like we did with Book of Boba Fett. I'm then going to also ask you predictions for the next episode. So give me a score, I'll give a score, and then we'll talk about what we think may or may not happen in the next episode.
Okay. 9.9.
9.9. Okay, strong. I give it a 9.5. No. I'm talking episode 1, episode 2 combined.
Yeah.
9.5.
It only would have been better if he'd used his lightsaber.
I really want to give it a 10. Like, I do really want to give it a 10.
Yeah, I know.
But
It's like, where do you go from there?
exactly. And it was explosive. I was absolutely loving it. And all of the kind of, I'm going to say the criticisms that we've not really criticised, we've just kind of pointed to a few bits that we don't understand, might get explained.
We would have done differently. Yeah.
That those kind of factor in a little bit, but all of those, and I will be completely honest here, I sat and watched them, and the whole time I was in the moment. I wasn't thinking, oh, that doesn't really make sense. Oh, I wonder what's going to happen here. I was along for the ride the entire episode.
I think we've learned a little bit now with Dave Filoni, and this is something that I hate to harp on about it. We didn't get in the sequels, is that you feel like things are going to be explained. You feel like when there's a
The
plot
man
hole
always has a
in
plan.
the Filoni era, that it's going to be explained later
There's
on,
a
and we
plan.
just have that. We have that trust.
Yeah.
And whereas we maybe haven't had that in the past.
Yeah.
So
No,
I'm okay with watching stuff and being like, oh, wonder how that's come about, because I just know it's going to be answered.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So talk to me about next episodes.
Also, next episode, so he's got obviously Leia.
They're on the ship, right?
Yeah. So you'd assume that there's going to be some kind of space fight battle, maybe. It might be that we go straight back to Bail. I think it's going to be more of... Oh, see, I really don't know. I think we're going to see more about the Inquisitors and Vader. This is going to be... So episode 1 was like 56 minutes long. Episode 2, I think it was 46 minutes long. Wouldn't surprise me if episode 3 was a shorter one. And it focused more on... Because remember, the Grand Inquisitor's been stabbed. We know that he survives because he's in Rebels.
Unless it's a different Grand Inquisitor,
Yeah,
but you would think really,
yeah. But I think we're going to see more of... The only thing we didn't see from the trailer that was in these episodes was the Inquisitor's base, which we've seen in Fallen Order. So I feel like there's going to be probably a lot more Inquisitor. There's going to be a bit of Vader, I think.
Well, as I say,
I don't know if I have a prediction or not. I just feel like we're going to see a bit more of the villains in the next episode.
So they've now teased Vader, like, properly, because obviously he's in the back to tank and all of that kind of stuff. So I think we'll see something of Vader, even if it's just like a hologram transmission between him and the Inquisitors, or something like that. I think we'll see him. Interested to see what they're setting up with the fake Jedi saying there's people that will help. There's people that can help, because I feel like they're trying to set up the Rebel Alliance, but obviously it's too early for it to be the Rebel Alliance. However, you could still have figures like Mon Mothma, who was obviously around towards the end of... we know that she's a member of the Senate, right? There's every possibility that we get a little Mon Mothma cameo, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like if I hadn't seen the originals, I'd be thinking what my prediction would be for the next episode is that Obi-Wan realizes he's getting nowhere with Owen Lars in regards to training Luke in the ways of the Force. So that would lead me to think, well, Obi-Wan surely try this with Leia and say to Bail, she needs to be trained in the Force. And maybe she shows him that she is, adept with the Force. I don't know. You just don't know what conversations are going to take place. Like, I love the little kind of nod he gave to Padme talking to Leia. He's like, "Oh, I knew somebody like you. She was stubborn. Blah 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 blah." She's like, "Oh, is that a friend of yours or something?" And he was like, "No." Like, I can't remember what he said.
She died a long time ago, or something like that.
Yeah, she died a long time ago, and it's like, oh, that's Leia's mum. Like, it's just... Oh
the
yeah, the whole thing.
the
It was such a nod to everything.
it was so clever. One final point. I know we've given scores and stuff. It's so clever. The bit where he's telling her off for like messing about with Lola and stuff. And he's like, "Don't make any noise." And then all of a sudden, something in his head switches, and he goes, "I'm talking to a child, actually." And then he comes back, and it's the kind of kind, affectionate Obi-Wan that we are more used to. So it's interesting to see this. I'm super excited. We've given it the
His best
scores.
friend's daughter. It's
We
mental.
we don't know what's gonna happen. Nobody knows what's gonna happen other than the chosen few that were involved in the project. So we'll just have to wait and see. It's less than a week. Luckily, that was the one bonus about them pushing this back by a couple of days. Is it's less than a week next Wednesday. So by the time you guys are seeing it, it'll be like 5 days or so. I'm super excited. I cannot wait. I think, Brian, let's leave it there.
Yeah.
And all that is left to say, everybody, is like, subscribe, smash the notification bell. Let us know down in the comments down below kind of what you really enjoyed from this episode, whether you hated this episode, maybe you hated it, maybe you're insane, who knows, and what you're looking forward to, what you want to see from the series. And other than that, guys, we will see you all real soon in the next one.
And the force be with you all.